All right. Okay. So, let's see what we got here. Back. Right. Okay. We got 20 more seconds. Everyone should be back. Okay.
All right, cool.
All right. We're good? All right, we're back. Only 3 questions. I was assuming I get more questions. Is there a long code in curly brace in HTML? How would I do it better? Okay, I have to take a look at it. Had a similar issue with Demolo with Google font not loading, so I had to add it directly to CSS. Yeah, Rafat, I had taken a look at yours, and you just did an add import to import the Google fonts. I did post a solution which had it, so could have taken a look at it to see how it was done, but really simple. This time handle clicked up on this, everyone yeah. So I did notice this here, and I think Gustavo, you had done this also in yours. You had this type of binding, but you did it in the actual click method. And so we're not really going to be doing this. You're going to see it all over the place. There's so much React code like that, but we're not going to be binding it like that. We're going to be using fat arrows to allow the method access to this keyword. Okay, so if you are doing it like this, reach out to me, Abdul, and be like, hey, I'm doing it like this, and why am I doing it like that? Don't do it like that. Okay. Not necessary when using fat arrows. Yeah, it's not necessary when you're using fat arrows. Since I'm not familiar with ES6, are there any resources we can use for the filter? One thing, thing two. Yeah, we can find some of those. Maybe, Abdul, you can find some resource for them to kind of reference with ES6. That is just a ternary operator, I think, if we're doing this. Yeah, that's just a ternary operator. That I don't believe is ES6. I think that's just JavaScript. That's been around for a really, really long time. So it's not a new thing in JavaScript. It's been around for some time. And it's just a way of doing a short if-else statement really quickly. And I had to use a closure to prevent the function from executing on each click.
Sorry, that was before you clicked it and executed.
Oh, so then I can demo why that happened. Okay, if the function is executing when the page loads, then you are calling it on page load. And I know what's causing that because I do demo that. I think we did demo that at one point in time to show you if when I do this dot, the name of the function, if I include the parens, that executes the function immediately. So you have to put it into a callback in order to prevent that functionality from happening. Okay, but I'll demo it as we go along. I'll make sure to point that out. I just wanted to see if there's anything here that I could demo along the way. As we go through it, I will. If you don't have a question now, by all means, ask a question anytime, and we can go back and I can answer it.
Is a callback significantly different than a closure in this case?
So a closure is basically, the concept of closure is just where this function, the scope of this thing ends. That's really closure. Closure is like, I know I have access to variables based on my scope and the scope of my parent and my parent's parent. How far up can I go? So I'm not necessarily closure to prevent it from executing each click. I don't think that that's it. I think the callback is just a way of saying when it's clicked, do the thing. That's the callback. That's always been a callback. A callback is a stop mechanism to be like, other things need to run, and when those other things finish, I will then execute. Okay? And so in a click event, that callback is what does it. It waits for the thing to click and then executes versus executing immediately. Okay? And when we do it, I'll point it out. And once again, if that comes up, just ask the same question again and just remind me, and I'll make a point of it. Okay. I don't know. Was there anything in the fave component here that kind of like threw anyone off? This whole, this right here was how you were just going to do the toggle, right? This is fave is going to be either false or true, right? True or false. If it is, if it's true, it returns this. If it's false, it returns that. And all we do is take this value, the return value, and add it right here. And that's really all it is. Every time render runs, it evaluates what's in state. It takes whatever value's here and then adds it here. And then these two class names are Google materialized icon sets. And that'll change it from a plus to a minus. That's really what it is. Add to queue is a plus, remove from queue is a minus. Okay. So that would do that. Yeah. Okay. And the same thing with, in the listing, I'm sorry, go back to the fave. For the color to change here is also is fave, right? This data is fave. Just trying to see right here. This is also true or false. Class name this, class name, and then it would add this there as well. And then based on this, it would add that. Okay. Cool. All right. I do have the solution there. So once again, always take a look at the solution if you're running into any sort of issues. All right. So let's see, what do we got? Anything coming in? All right. That was Abdul slagging. All right. Homework review, right. Okay. Control form. So last week we had done a ref. Can anyone explain what a ref was being used for? So if I go in here, where is it? Is my code along here? I'm just going to look for the ref. If anyone could just explain what the ref was being used for here, right? Here's the ref, right? What is the ref allowing us to do? Can anyone tell me?
Store data.
To what?
Store data.
Okay. So this ref is being used to store data. Anyone else? I'll take that as the first guess.
So the input, this dot input
Yep.
is going to store the input JSX.
Yes. Right? So this ref here is tied to this ref that we created up here, right? So we created this input and we're using react.createRef to create a reference, to create a handle on an element. And wherever we assign that, React then allows us to grab that element. Okay? And so when we do grab this element here, inside of our handle click up here, right? Where is it? We do grab it. This dot current input. Where do we grab it? This input right here. This dot input right there. Because we grabbed input, because we set it here, right? We defined it there. We created it up top. We defined it here. We can now grab that element, grab the current key, and then grab the value that was being typed in. And we know that by doing this, by typing red, boom, I submit. Nothing happened, but it was stored in state. Okay, was pushed up, would have been stored in state. Now, this is an uncontrolled form, which means we wait till the user finishes typing, and then we grab the info. But a lot of the times when it comes to forms, forms are going to be using controlled forms, okay? So I'm going to open up the code pen I'm using today. go along, and here it is. I also have the React architecture that I'm going to start overlaying here. Okay, this is the React architecture. 2 class-based components, the rest are functional components. And as I add state, I'm going to update this diagram to include what is state, where the methods are. So when you visually look at this, you would be able to kind of piecemeal what this thing is doing without looking at the code. You'd be able to kind of visualize it, okay? So here's the demo, right? I'll Slack it out. If you want to code along, by all means. If you want to just watch, once again, you can do whichever works best. All right. So I have that component structure, right? And I have app. App is a class-based. App is already set with state, and it's being passed the colors. All right, cool. We're really concerned with the form. That's kind of what I'm interested in. I want to do the form. Now, the form right now is not a class-based. So I'm going to make the few subtle changes to turn this into a class-based form, right? So class form extends React.component, right? Because I didn't include object destructuring to pull out components. So I'm just simply typing it here. I do render, right? We need the render method. And if there's anything with state this in here, I would have had to change props to this dot props, but there's nothing in here. It's just this, right? Okay. So we know that if I type something, that's fine, that's there. There are no methods here as of right now. There's no click events, right? The one event that there's 2 events. So for this particular one, right, which 2 events do I need to add? Anyone? Which 2 events do I need to add here? If you took a look at this, if the little bit of HTML that's here, which 2 events are needed?
What's the goal?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the goal is.
The goal is to capture the input here and store it in state like we did last week.
So you need on submit.
Okay, so that's the first one, right? So I probably create a method called on or handle submit, right? You're going to give this an E because we know that we want to stop or prevent default, right? Okay. What would be the other one?
On click.
Okay, so on click, right? If we wanted to click and grab it, right? All right. Now that worked last week. And we don't necessarily need the on click here because on submit, if we just do this, the form updates. This submit button is almost kind of like it's tied into the handle submit functionality. Okay, so I'm going to go to form and just tie those 2 together. So on submit is equal to, and I'm going to say this dot handle submit. Okay. And now the 2 are tied together. Once again, if I do this, the form refreshes, it's here. But if I add what? E dot prevent default, I can prevent the form from refreshing. Let's see, does it stop? Look, doesn't refresh anymore. Awesome. I'm also going to open this just in another window here, just to see it, see are there any errors, no nothing, right? This looks good. I don't want to keep doing this and like hitting this and getting errors. So I'm going to go back here. Let me hit any errors, no, nothing. Pretty cool, right? The next thing I want to do is make sure also that this is working. So I would just say console log inside handle submit. These are the baby steps that I always advise anyone to do. Put a console log, make sure the thing works. I hit enter, good. I know it's working. Okay. Now I want to capture this data. I have to introduce a new event listener. Okay, and that event listener is handle change. It's onChange. It's an onChange. And what I'm going to do is assign that onChange to the input. Okay, zoom in a little bit here. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to kind of go to the next line. I'm going to stack these things on top of each other. Okay, it just makes it easier to see. And I'm going to say onChange is equal to, I got to spell it right? onChange is equal to, and then this dot handle change. I'm going to just call it this dot handle change. It's not up here yet. Okay, and this should, I think it would be screaming at me right now because it's like, hey, value, like receive true for Boolean. I'm not really sure why they're there. Handle change, it will be ignored. Like it doesn't even know where this thing is, right? Oh, that was the first one, right? That was the misspelling. So I'm going to refresh this. Let me just refresh it. I want to see if there's an error. Oh, it's not throwing the error. Okay, figure it would. I'm going to go here now and create the handle change method. Okay. Boom. All right. So here's the handle change method. And we're going to make sure it works. Okay. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to say console log, hey, this is handle change. Awesome. Once again, just test it. Refresh the page, make sure I don't get any other errors. Sweet. Boom. Handle change, handle change, handle change. As many times as I type in, you see handle change. Every time I type a character, handle change is executed. It may seem like a lot of work, but there's a reason for controlled components. Okay, so I'm going to submit. Look, handle submit. Everything still seems to work perfectly. That's what we wanted, right? Awesome. Now, what handle change needs to do is it needs to update the value and input. It needs to grab the value and update the value and store the value in state. The ultimate goal is for handle change to capture, I'll just put a note here, handle change here. Handle change will capture user input, okay? It will then update state each time the user inputs a character. Whatever that character is, it doesn't matter. Okay? Updating state causes, right, a re-render. Okay? If it causes a re-render, that means our component re-renders. And the minute it re-renders, I'm going to put that value that I just captured back into input. Okay? So let's say that this is what we're doing. Okay, well, if I capture the input here, then I need state also, right? I need something in state. So I'm just going to say state, right? I'm going to get rid of this. State is equal to an object because we know that state is an object. Okay. State's going to capture the input that we type in, right? So I could say input here. We could just give it a name of input. And I'm going to set it to an empty string by default. Just set it to an empty string. User didn't type in anything, so it's an empty string, right? Okay. Now, because it's a controlled component, right? This is like kind of like a controlled form here. I'm going to go here and add a key of value and make it equal to this dot state dot input. Okay. Now, the minute I do this, I'm typing now in the input box, but nothing happens, right? Nothing is coming on the screen. Now, once again, if I get rid of this, if I was to delete this, my input form captures data, but with it, my input form is capturing data. Well, it's not really capturing data yet because handle change really doesn't do anything, but every character I type is being sent here, okay? I am passing that character up the chain to that thing, okay? So if it's there, then we have access to it. Then I can grab the thing. So how do I grab it? Where is it stored, right? I mean, I have value, so maybe I can do something like, now that we have this, what if I was to do e dot target dot value. Let's try that. That's the target, right? E is the event that's occurred. It has occurred on the input. Target is the target of that event. And value is this key right here. It's a key value pair, right? So if I do this and I go back here, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to clear out all my sentences. I'm going to start typing in. Do you see how it's capturing each character and then kind of just showing it on the screen, every character I type? Because that's what character I typed. But I didn't save it anywhere. So you see how red every single instance of the character is being put onto the screen, right? If I can store those character sets in state, I can then concatenate the sequence of characters. And then therefore, I can create the color or the string of red. And once I have the color, I can submit, grab it, add the color, and we can like do the thing with the color, right? So I'm going to go back.
How does this handle the backspace?
What's that?
How does that handle the backspace? Like, let's say you typed in RES and you want to go back.
Oh, then it would get rid of it. You'll have to see it. Once it's in there, you'll see the change. I'll show you the change once it's in there, okay? So let's add the change. Let's see that we can see what's happening here. Okay, so if I go here and I say this dot set state. Okay, I'm going to say prev state. Once again, even though you don't always need prev state, I want you to include it for now so that you get used to using it. If it's there, you can always ask the question, oh, I remember it's there and I know how to use it. If you don't use it consistently, then there's going to be times like, oh, prev state, I remembered this thing, but I don't know how to use it anymore. If it's, and this is a callback, right? It's like this is the parameter, this is fat arrow, and we're passing an object, right? So the thing in state is called input. Okay, all right, input. And what are we going to set the input to? E dot target dot value, right? I'm setting it to that. Now, if I type in, oh, what happened? Let me see. Did I break something here? What did it do? Occurred in the event form. Let me see. So there, we're running this accessing the target property. Interesting. Is an event set to null. But this is set to an empty string. What's going on here?
I think you got to do e.prevent default.
It shouldn't happen here, though, inside of this. It's only when you submit the form. Submitting the form requires that you don't submit it. But all I'm doing is typing in a character, and this should not. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to get rid of state just real quick because it's state that's causing the problem. Okay? So I'm going to go back to state.
I think if you remove the console.log, it'll also work.
Oh, it's that console log thing again. Remember we were getting those error messages? No.
Oh, never mind.
No.
Mine works. I've been following you.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I know this should work, so I'm really kind of puzzled as to why when we grab the value, I have input here in state. And so setting state here seems to be flipping out, and I don't know why it's flipping out. So let me take a look here. If I type in red, right, it was thrown, React doesn't have access to the actual error object. All right, I get that. Form component, right, it's telling me it occurred in the form component. Well, I get that. We know that that's where we're at. Cannot read property value of null. That's really what it's saying. I think this is the problem.
But yeah, but split up because it says this is set to null in that same error right above it.
Yeah, even though this is this, like it's originally set to nothing, we grab this value.
Joe, do you have to pass A at the onChange inside the?
Oh, you know what I think is happening here? Is this. All right, here's something. So I want to kind of point this out. I'm kind of glad this happened, not glad it happened, one of those things, right? I'm going to do this. Const value, here we go, const input is equal to e.target.value. It's a scoping thing. So now I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say input. Okay? Now it works. And Gustavo, I can hit the back and go back. I can go forward, ready, and go back. Okay? It's a scoping issue right here where inside of this callback, I don't have access to the this keyword. It doesn't really know this. It's like this, what the hell? I can't do that. But if I was to do this, instead of using prev state, and I just did this, it would work. e.target.value. Okay, this actually happened last week. I just forgot. Okay. The difference between the two here is that I'm not in the callback. I'm not in a different scope. I'm in a scope that doesn't have access outside of it. It can't look up and find this. It's almost as we would have configured handle change to be a method like this, right? Doing this breaks the ability to call the this keyword, right? This isn't this. Fat arrow gives us access to the this keyword. The minute we include prev state here, the minute we do this, we've kind of closed the scope. And now it's like, I don't know where this E thing is. Like, I don't know where it is. I'm in this little box. Oh, wait. Here. I wrote it wrong. I don't know how to get access to that. And so it breaks. Like, this is null, and you're trying to set it. It's just like, there's nothing in E. I don't really know what to do. Okay? That's what's happening here. Okay? So if you're going to do this, and once again, I suggest we kind of go this route at the very beginning. We do this, then I would say input is input. And this should input. Right? Now it works. Okay? Everything I capture gets put into state. And then if I was to, I'm going to get rid of this. If I was to submit it, then we could do something with it, right? We have this color. I can add that to the colors, but the form doesn't have access to that component to get the color on the screen. We can only capture it. We still need to pass it around. Okay, so that's the difference here. So a controlled component is meant to capture every keystroke. Under what conditions do you think would be a good reason to use a controlled component like this on a form?
I've seen some things where, like, when you're typing in your password when making a new account, it's like, this password is weak, this password is strong.
Exactly, right? What if I wanted to validate someone's email address that you typed in, right? You could use a JavaScript regular expression, which is a pattern matching technique, which would then match that there's an @ symbol. And that @ symbol has 2 or 3 or a series of characters after it, and then a dot, and then 2 or 3 characters after that. If you put 5 characters after the dot, there's no domain name out there that goes past like a .com or .edu, right? 3 characters. I don't know of any that goes way beyond that, right? Does anyone know? I don't think so, right? It's either 2.
There's actually some really weird ones these days.
Is there? Okay.
There's a .Black Friday.
Yeah, you can set it to be whatever you want, but working in the email field, you will get marked as spam. So just heads up if you try to do that.
Yeah,
that's good to know. I haven't tried that.
Yeah. Wow. I thought they ran out of ideas,
Yeah,
but apparently they did. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we use the control form to kind of evaluate what the user's typing in as they type it in, right? I can do that with the password, like, hey, the password's weak. I can just keep evaluating it as character sets get introduced, like an uppercase and a number that qualifies the thing to be a stronger thing, and then I can evaluate that, right? So you want to do that. If I want just text and not numbers, right? If you're putting your name, you shouldn't have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in there, right? That's not a name. So you can evaluate and say only character sets of the alphabet, upper and lower case, are acceptable. right? The only other thing is like you could put something like a required. So I could put here required as a key, as a property here. Oh no, this has to be inside of here. So if I was to add just one more little thing here, required, I could force this thing. You couldn't submit this thing unless you see that. That's just HTML. That's not React. That's not JavaScript. That's just HTML saying if you want to submit it, it's required. You have to put something in there. You can't just submit it without it. Like that's our last measure of like, the thing wasn't filled out, so you can't submit it. Right? I'll just keep out the required. We don't really care at this point. The goal of this is to capture it, and then once we capture it, we could have done something with it. So if I console now, this is handle submit and say this dot state dot input, right? If I do that, and I go back here, get rid of all these messages, and I do red, and I submit, look, handle submit has the color red. Obviously, now that we have the value, we want to do something with the value, right? We need to pass the value back up, but we're going to do that on Thursday. Right now, it's about doing the controlled inputs, okay? The only other shorthand we could use here is this, and this is an ES6 thing. If the key of input is equal to or the same name as a variable that contains the value that you want, then you can just write it as input. One single name. Okay, once again, if the key and state, which is input, is equal to or the same name as the variable that we created, then all we have to do is create the variable with that name, and then we can just put input in there, and it would capture that. And I can test this by going here and saying, once again, red, hit enter, and red is here, right? Making sure red, we could do blue, there's blue, and if I submit, there's blue, right? The last thing that you would want to do is what on this form? When the user clicks enter, what do? Is this aesthetically pleasing with this? Like, hey, I hit enter. Why do I see blue there? What should happen?
I guess we should clear it.
Clear out the form. So in handle submit, after you've grabbed the value and you know what you want to do with it, like I want to do something with this value, and I'm going to pass the value to something else to do the something else, it is here that we would then do this dot set state, right? We can use pre-state again, right? Even though we don't really need it. And then I could say input is equal to an empty string. And it clears out the form. You are now responsible for handling every keystroke, updating state every time the key is typed, and then when they handle submit, you're responsible for clearing the form. That's your job. If I go here and I type in red and I submit, it clears the form. If I type in blue and I submit, it clears the form. Okay? This is a controlled input. This is truly how you're going to be writing your inputs. The way we did it last week with a ref is one way to do it. Okay, and refs have a place. Most React developers go this route. Okay, I wanted to show refs because refs is another way of implementing it, and it's a lot easier. This requires a lot of like capturing thing, updating state, putting the thing back down. That's a lot of overhead. I mean, I know you're going to type in red, and I don't really need to validate that it's not the color 1, 2, 3, right? Although you probably want to do that, right? If this app, you wanted to cover all your bases, you would. Okay? So that's what we're doing with that, with this type of input, and then using this. Okay? We're good so far? Feeling good? Feeling good? I'm getting a lot of head shakes, so I'm saying we're good. All right. So now I'm going to go back to my diagram here, and I'm going to insert a text box, and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I just added state, right? And state now has, I don't know, an input, and it's set to an empty string, right? Awesome. I also, I'm going to add another one. I'm going to insert another text box, and I just added methods. And one of the methods I added was a handle submit and a handle change, right? And we know what these methods do, right? The reason why I'm doing this is now that we look at this diagram, this architecture, we can see that form has an input, right? And that these handle submit and handle change are going to do the update. So I can even extend this and say, oh, handle change updates, updates input in state with user input. Okay. All right. And then handle submit obviously handles submitting the form. And then we have to decide what it's going to do after that, right? We still have to pass this thing up. But this at least gives an indication, a visual indication to what this thing is doing. Okay? So when I look at this, at least I have some indication of the architecture of my app. And this is super important. The architecture of your app is really key. Taking the time to mock this up and draw it out and kind of put these things in place is really a good stepping stone for you to like understand what's happening before you do the thing. Okay, I would highly suggest that. And later we have a lab that actually forces you to implement something based on a design. Okay, awesome. All right, it's 8:56. Why don't we take our 10-minute break? When we come back, we'll jump into the lab. Okay, 8:56. Take a break. Come back at 9:06. 9:06. I'm gonna pause the recording. Okay. We're back. All right, so the lab we're doing is you're going to do, once again, kind of the same thing that we were doing. So let me select out lab here. Here is the code sandbox. Here is the to-do list architecture, okay, which you'll update. And your goal is to take this app in the form right now is a class-based component, so you don't have to upgrade it. And what you need to do is add a controlled form. So take what we did here. If I was to put these kind of together next to each other, right? Take what we did here, adding the handle change, handle submit, right? Update state, which means you're going to have to create state. Add the supporting handle submit function here and the onChange, handle change events as well, and capture the data. Confirm along the way that you got the data, console log the data. Once state is updated, reset here in the handle submit, reset it. Go through the process that we've done. So I'm intentionally kind of leaving out the directions like, this is part one, do this is part two. I want to see just based on what we did, based on the supporting code, can you just re-implement the thing? Do you know where to start? Where's your starting point? Do you create the methods first? Do you add them? Do you create the events first and then create the methods? However you want to approach it that way. Just make it work. Like make it so that when you capture in the to-do and you submit, you at least have it, you clear the field, and you know that you have that value. We still haven't gotten around to what to do with that value, but we will. That's next class. Okay? Any questions? So let me see. I guess we jump into it. Rafat, how long do you think it would take? I'll go Rafat, Connor, and Joey in that order. Give me like a time. How long?
Let's say 5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Connor?
I was going to say 10 to 15.
10 to 15. Joey?
I'll go in the middle, 10.
10 minutes. Sold. All right. I'm going to set it for 10 minutes. Okay. I think you could probably get this done in 10 minutes. If you do need extra time, I'll set it for 12 minutes, just so that if anyone struggles. I'm going to put it, a thumbs up if you get it done. If everyone gets it done, we just jump right into the second portion, okay? The second lab is going to be way longer than this, okay? So I want to really get through this as fast as we can. All right, so 12 minutes, done, and you have the to-do list, you have the architecture, you're off to your own thing. I'm going to stay in this room just in case anyone has any questions. I'm not going to go into breakout rooms. I'll stay here. If somebody has a question, I'll answer the question. It might pertain to other people. We're going to do breakout rooms for the second one, okay? I'm just going to jump off a video, mute myself in the meantime, okay? And you feel free to jump off a video too while you're working on it, okay? Reach out if you do have any questions. Me and Abdullah here. Cool. Okay, looks good. Looks like all 10 clicked on it, so we're good. About 10 minutes. I think most were done sooner, but once again, some of you might JavaScript in general or React might take a little longer to sink in. I want to give everyone the time to do it, as well as the additional challenges. So I didn't mention that I do have, in the Slack channel, I do have 2 additional columns now in the homework tab. If you're working on it and you want us to look at it, put it there. These are bonuses. You don't have to do them. But this will tell me when we do finish a lab sooner, there's extra time, that you still have something to work on. If you choose not to work on it, you know, that's your priority. But working on it during the meantime will just keep giving you that React exposure. Okay, you have to work out a solution on your own with no like, do it this way, do it that way. Figure it out, see what works, play with it, and definitely reach out to us, okay? Awesome. So let us jump into kind of the next topic here. So I'm going to do this. Now, we did the form. If it's working, everyone said it was working. I didn't work out the solution on my own for it, but it is what we were doing anyway. So if it didn't work for you, let me know, and we'll go back and I'll take a look at it. What I wanted to do is take that form kind of to the next level and do something with nested state. So far we've only had one input, right? Type 1 single input, really easy. A single input, you capture the thing. There's nothing really crazy about a single input. I mean, there's nothing really crazy about double input either. But there is this other little nuance that we can add. So I just have this form, and you know, I can click here and submit it. There's nothing attached to it. I can click on this little box. I wanted to give you multiple inputs, okay? And I have it set so there's, you know, a label and an input, okay? The label is for the name, and then the input, and label, name, and then this little check mark, right? So 3 of these, using Flexbox to stack them up. And so I want to add, I'm just going to walk through the process real quick, right? I'm going to add state, okay? So we know that these inputs need to be captured. And I have this checkbox, remember me, okay? I'm going to start with the checkbox. I'm going to say is remembered, okay? Now I'm going to set that to false. No one's remembered me yet. I haven't checked on the thing. Then I'm going to say form data. Okay, and form data is an object. Before, it was just input, a single key with a value within state. Form data now is going to have a name of, I'm going to say here last, and we'll set that to an empty string, and we'll give it first, or it should be first and last. It doesn't really matter, right? Empty string. Okay. Once again, I'm going to capture their first name, their last name, and then here, as part of the, excuse me, as part of the inputs, I have something called an ID of name here, okay? I'm going to just put these on different names. Placeholders, this is an ID of name, and then for the input, I have an ID of remember me, I have a name of remember me also. Okay, so now that I have this, I am going to add a single handle change, an on-change event listener to both of the inputs. Both of these are listening to one event, and we will take it will listen to both, and it will update the corresponding value in form data with that. Okay, so I'm just going to say handle. I'll create the method. This is how I'll do it. Handle change is equal to E, right? Boom. Okay, I'm going to say console log, inside handle change. So I know that I'm in there, and then I'm going to go to the input. I'm going to say, all right, input. I need a on change event, and I'm going to call this dot handle change, right? I'm going to call that. I'm going to do the same thing for this input. Okay, so I'll work out this one in a second. We'll work this one out in just 1 second, because we're going to need a separate one for that, because this thing is just one click. So I have this. Awesome. I want to collect that data. I want to collect the data. I also want to set the value here of this input is going to be equal to this dot state dot form data dot first, right? That's its value, first and last, form data. So in order to get to the first key, I have to go through form data. And form data is nested inside state, right? State is an object, form data is an object, first is that key. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to apply it to input here. And here I'm going to say last. Okay, so at least we know which one's which. Okay, and I have the value here. What I don't have is, I just want to see, am I going to do an ID or a value, name value? Okay, so I want to do this. I want to console log, now that I have it, I want to console log e dot target dot value, right? So we can start. I'm going to open this up in another pane here. Okay. Open this up here. We have our have our form developer tools. Let's make sure it's all working. Joe. All right. Cool. Yeah, and right. I'm not updating state yet. It's just outputting the thing. Awesome. Now when I go here, I want to update the appropriate thing in state, the value in state for this particular thing, right? So if we want to update that particular value in state, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say const name value is equal to e.target.value, okay? Now, remember how if I create the variable, instead of referencing it directly inside of state, there's a good chance I'm using pre-state.
The code is up.
Right?
Is up.
If I'm using pre-state, then I don't have access to e.target.value in the pre-state, in the set state callback. So I'm defining them up here. And what does this do? Can anyone tell me what is that called? What I'm doing right there.
Tuple?
Curly braces with a couple of names is equal to a thing like
Destructuring.
oh, and it's e.target. Sorry. What's the name of that construct? ES6 construct. It's called object
Destructuring.
Object destructuring, right? Who said it, Gustavo? My volume was actually turned off.
About 3 people said it.
Oh, okay. You know what? My volume accidentally turned off, and I was like, why is no one saying anything? All right. Then when I saw you talk, I was like, why do I not hear him? All right. Yes, object destruction. That was odd. All right. That was a little weird. We'll laugh at that one. Okay. So I'm eliciting out of target the name and the value, right? So I could say here now, I'm just going to move this down here so I don't have to rewrite it. I'll just say, okay, what is name and value, right? Let's do that. I just want to say it. Okay, get rid of this. Okay. Is it not? Why is it not updating? Right?
Is it because there's no name value on target and you mean ID?
There is. Oh, yes. I meant to put name. That's what I meant to put. Okay. Here we go. Name. I could have done ID, but I wanted it to be name because I just did. All right. Let me go back here. Okay. This is handle, and it's still not. This is handle. Oh, yeah. First and E. Okay. So it's just giving me first as the name, right? That's the name of this thing that it was typed, and then I'm getting the value. Now, the reason why I want first is because, look, the key of first here will match the name of first there, right? The two are very similar, so I can do that whole, hey, I got the key, and the key is equal to the thing, so I can pair them up. This is how we pair them up. Okay. Now I want to set state, right? I know this is first. Oh, let me do last. Like, let me do the last one too. Like, okay, so last. First and last. I'm going to go back here. Now watch. I'm going to set state. This dot set state prev state. Okay. And in here I'm going to say brackets name. Interesting. And then value. Okay. So what is happening here? Can anyone tell me what's happening here? I mean, this is just part of JavaScript in general.
You are applying the value of the name variable.
Yeah.
You're setting that as a variable with the value of value in the state.
Correct. And so name changes itself into either first or last, right? What I'm doing here is a technique like this. I just want to show you. So let obj is equal to first, right? I don't need the key there. I just have to say first, and then I'll say Joe, right? Okay. If I want to get the key of first, I can do this, right? It's easy enough. If I want, I can use bracket notations too, and I could do this, and I would get it, right? This is a string. This is dot notation. That's bracket notation. But if I had a variable called let first is equal to first, right? I could do obj first like that, okay? The difference is that this first is referencing this variable name. So when you're referencing keys in an object, if the key name is a variable somewhere, then you must remove the quotes and just put the variable name, okay? I could have called it whatever I wanted as long as it turned into first. I could have said let some name is equal to first, right? And then I could have said obj some name, and I get it back too. It doesn't matter what the name of the variable is. It's the return value of the variable that's key here, okay? That's why I'm bringing this up, okay? Two different ways to get a value from an object. One is dot notation, one is bracket notation. Bracket notation must be used if the key name that you're using is a variable, because if I did obj dot some name, well, there's nothing, there's no key called some name. Dot notation doesn't convert the some name variable into its corresponding value that was stored in it, okay? I need to make that clear. That's why we can use bracket notation with a variable. And so now that we've done this, every time I type in, I will know whether I'm on the first input or the last input. I will grab the value and store that value in state, right? Theoretically, this should work, right? If I really want to see that state has been updated, right, we can go here. I mean, obviously, value here is putting the values. That should work, right? I don't even need to do this. Let's take a look. If I go here and I type in Joe, oh, it's not updating it. Why is it not updating it?
If we input from data,
Let's go back here. Let's see. So this should be updating state in, because there's no key called name here. It's in what? Form data, right? This is an example of nested state. Okay. Does this make sense? Oh, form data is an object. Okay. We haven't done this before. We've done straight up keys directly in state, not a nested object in state. This still should work. Now let's take a look. Okay, let's clear this out. Joe, right? Am I getting the values? Sweet, all right. I'm gonna type in my last. All right, and it seems like it works, right? I've captured the values. I've stored the values in there. Awesome, okay? And I'm just gonna make sure here that if I was to do the callback, I can console log and just say, hey, you know, this is state. Just want to see every time state goes, I'll see it. I'm going to get rid of this console log, so I don't need to see that. All right, I'm going to go back here. Okay, refresh this. Let's do this one more time. Okay, controlled input. Component is changing a controlled input of type undefined to be uncontrolled. All right, I don't think we need to. All right, so it works. See? So we're able to actually grab the input and, oh, but look, this is state, right? It didn't really show me the object. Every time I type in, I'm going to clear this out again. I'm going to say a component. I think this is something to do with it. A component is changing a controlled input of type undefined to be uncontrolled. Input elements should not switch from controlled or uncontrolled devices. I'm surprised that that's coming up. It must be something over here that I'm doing at this input. I just want to take a look at what I got. Name first name right, onChange, handle change.
I saw while you're scrolling, your console
I'm
log
changing
is
anything.
not doing anything.
Placeholder, name, type, value. Value is this. We're
His
getting
volume's gone again.
back from first. Yeah, we're seeing it.
Yo, you can't hear us again.
What I wanted to see here, and I think this error here is tied to something else. I don't think I've seen this before. A component is changing a controlled input of type undefined to be uncontrolled. Input elements should not switch from controlled to uncontrolled. I don't think we're switching it from controlled to uncontrolled. Type is using a controlled or uncontrolled input for the lifetime of the component. I found that odd because it's saying that it's not controlled. When I have a handle change here, and I have a handle change here, which makes it a controlled component, right? So let me take a look here. Sound is on. Oh man, sorry. I don't know what just happened. My microphone keeps going off. Did someone say anything?
Yeah, so your console.log is only logging the string. This is state. You're not actually logging the state itself.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Yeah, Slack me if it goes off again. I don't know why my volume keeps shutting off. So here. Yeah, all right, here we go. So here's state. This is remembered state. There's Joe. And if I do QN. Now, what happened to Joe? Well, let me do this one more time. Okay. Oh, we didn't clear state. Oh, that's why. You know, when we write it, I never cleared it. So watch. Joe, I go here, and I see form data has first name Joe, right? If I do Keohan, it's my last name, and I go back, well, what happened to the Joe key? The name, the first name isn't there anymore. Do you see that? First name is gone. Okay, so this is where this is all leading to, is this. Anytime you rewrite an object as the value to a key in state, it doesn't maintain the other key value pairs in the object. I need to tell React to include all of those keys. This will look similar to this. I don't know if this looks similar to like ... prev state dot colors, and then I added a new color, right? Does this look familiar? Like, did we do something like that? The spread operator to tell it to grab the previous array of colors, pull out the things, and then add the new thing, right? Anytime you're writing to state, you are rewriting the actual thing. You're not like updating the thing, you're like giving it a new value. So what we need to do here is this, dot, 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 prev state dot form data, right? Let me see, just make sure I'm getting it right. Dot form data, okay, comma. What we're telling React now is this. Grab all the previous keys that existed in form data and put them there. Then I want you to update this one specific key. Let's make sure this works. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this one more time, right? Joe, and we see Joe's in there. K-E-O-H-A-N. Now watch. Both first and last are inside the form data, okay? This is a big concept with React. State, when you rewrite something in state, it overwrites what was there before. In essence, what we're telling form data here is to rewrite a brand new object. A brand new object, without this, a brand new object with one key value pairs. That's it. If you include the spread operator, you're saying get all of the previous key values and then proceed to update this one single key value pair. Okay? That makes sense? Makes sense, right? Okay. Awesome. It's kind of where we're going at this. This is the big chunk of what I wanted to get through before you jump into a lab, which I want to get you back into a lab. So let's do this. Refactor, come along, refactor. Okay. It's going to be your starter code. And this is where I was talking about the architecture. So here's the starter code. Let me slack out the starter code. Here's the starter code. And you're going to be, I'm going to put you in groups because I want everyone to kind of talk some of this stuff through. So this has an app, and this app has this huge form right here. Okay? The huge form. And what I'd like you to do is this, the conditional rendering was bonus. Don't even worry about that. I don't think you're going to have time to do that. What I want you to do is this. The form, you have to create a form component and put the form component in there. Okay? I think we could just do this in app just for time constraints. Maybe we don't even need the form component. We could just do it in app. What I'd like you to do is focus in on state. That's the state of the thing. Okay? Is logged on as false, form data. Here it's called username. Here it's called password. Okay? The methods that I want you to create are handle change inputs. That's going to handle the inputs for username and password. Okay? This one you don't have to do right now. I'm just going to move it down here only because I think for time constraints, we're just not going to be able to do that. So I'll put that over there. Okay? I want you to do a handle submit. And then this also, you don't have to do that. Okay? There's a few things I wanted to show you more, but we're running short on time, and I want to give you some time to do this. Okay? So what I want you to do is take this login form and implement the same concept that we just did. The handle change to grab both of these inputs. Okay, don't worry about the checkbox. Both of those inputs, and then update those. When you submit it, just console log that you've grabbed those values. Okay, but it's really about nested state. That's really what I'm concerned with right now. Okay, you don't have to create a form component. You can do it in app. For time constraints, just do it in app. Okay. I am going to put you in breakout rooms, and we'll jump in. Me and Abdul will be jumping into the breakout rooms. Okay. So kind of understood what we need to do? Okay. Let me put you in the breakout rooms. I'm going to try to put Everyone back into the same breakout rooms. Can you share the link for the last? Yes. Yes, I will. Last code along was this. Was this. Right. Okay. Let me select that out. There you go. I didn't put it in Charlie. I just made it up while everyone's doing the last lap. Okay. Everyone's good. I'm going to put you back into your breakout rooms here. Let me just move a few. Move to breakout room 4. Boom. Anyone else? 3, 3, 3. It looks like groups of 3. This is good. You have more people to talk to. All right. Breakout rooms, and then we'll jump in. Go ahead. I'm going to put you in a breakout room, and I'll jump in and chat with you. And I'm going to make you host also, so co-host, so you can jump in. All right, so I'm going to assign you to 5, and then I'll jump into 5.